homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Welcome back, young friends, and everyone joining for this gradual teaching series. We're continuing to look at the Buddha's gradual instructions on the blessing of renunciation. And what is true is that renunciation is not something that is easy to understand. And this is because we are still learning the Dhamma. We're still practicing. And so we take different teachings of the Buddha in order to help us to understand a little bit more each time. And so today we're looking at the Dhammapada verse number 181 and the story of the Buddha's return from the Tāvatiṁsa realm. The Buddha went to spend his 7th vassa in the Tāvatiṁsa realm. This is 7 years after his enlightenment. And he goes up to the Tāvatiṁsa realm to teach his mother, who has been reborn into the Tusitadeva realm. And he teaches other devas and brahmas as well. At the very same time, Venerable Sariputta spends the rains retreat dwelling at Sankhasanagara, and there he teaches 500 bhikkhus over the vassa the same teachings that the Buddha teaches, the Abhidhamma. Towards the end of the vassa, Venerable Mahamoggallana, using his supernormal abilities, he goes up to the Tāvatiṁsa realm to see the Buddha, and he learns that the Buddha will return to the human realm on the full moon day marking the end of the vassa. On the full moon day, when the Buddha descends, there's a huge congregation gathered at Sankhasanagara. All the villagers turn up, and Venerable Sariputta and the monks also are there to greet the Buddha. And the Buddha descends in this grand way from the Tāvatiṁsa realm, and he's accompanied by a huge number of devas and brahmas, and there are many lights emanating from the Buddha's body. When Venerable Sariputta sees this magnificent sight before his eyes, he respectfully approaches the Buddha and he says to the Buddha, "I have never seen such a marvelous and luminous sight." And he says also to the Buddha, "Venerable Sir, you are loved and respected and venerated by devas, brahmas, and humans alike." And the Buddha says to Venerable Sariputta, "My son Sariputta, yes, indeed, the Buddhas are venerated by humans and devas, for they have the good qualities." And then he says this verse, "The wise, intent on mental absorption, delight in the peace of renunciation. Even the devas hold them dear, the supreme Buddhas, the ones who are mindful." So this is a very nice story that we learn about the Buddha's time in the Tāvatiṁsa realm and how he comes back. What we see from this is the qualities that the devas hold dear, what they respect. The first thing is wisdom. The second thing is the ability to concentrate the mind. The third is taking delight in the peace of renunciation. Now, what is especially wonderful about these qualities is that they are very much in contrast to what the everyday person would look up to in the world. So when we look at just generally people in the world who they look up to, celebrities, people who are successful, people who are powerful, all the worldly things, so worldly power, worldly success, worldly wealth, worldly happiness. But this is opposite to what the Buddhas cultivate. So the Buddhas do not have worldly power, worldly wealth, worldly success. What they have is the peace of renunciation. Letting go, renunciating, cultivating wisdom to perfection, cultivating the mind to perfection. And so when you see it in this way, you know that the devas are the ones that are reborn in the higher realms. They have done good deeds, they have kept a certain amount of virtue. And what is true is that Buddha and the noble arahants, they are practicing non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. These are the things that are not of the world. And when they attain the supreme safety and security of Nibbana, of perfect enlightenment, then they have the complete understanding of the blessing of renunciation. And so this is what the devas look up to. They look up to that, and they trust in that, because the Buddha and the noble arahants ask for nothing from them, and they're not seeking gain, honor, and praise. What they want to do is to show the way on this path of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, and to show that there is peace in renunciation, blessings of renunciation. There is the safety in renunciation that you won't find in the world. Throughout the suttas, we see many instances where the Devas come to pay respects to the Buddha. We see many instances where they come to ask questions and to learn the Dhamma from the Buddha and the Noble Arahants. One particular sutta is the Mahāsamaya Sutta, and this is a longer discourse in Digha Nikaya number 20. This is where we see a great congregation of Devas coming from all the realms to pay homage to the Buddha and the Noble Sangha. The sutta begins by saying, "Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans near Kapilavatthu, in the Great Wood, together with a large Sangha of around 500 bhikkhus, all of whom were perfected ones. And most of the Devas from 10 solar systems had gathered to see the Buddha and the Sangha of the bhikkhus. Then 4 Devas of the pure abodes, aware of what was happening, thought, why don't we go to the Buddha and each recite a verse in his presence? And so standing to one side, one Deva recited this verse to the Buddha. There's a great congregation in the woods. A host of Devas have assembled. We've come to this righteous congregation to see the invincible Sangha. And then another Deva says, the bhikkhus there are immersed in samadhi. They've straightened out their minds like a charioteer who has taken the reins. The astute ones protect their senses. And then yet another Deva says, having cut the stake and cut the bar, they're unstirred, with boundary pillar uprooted. They live pure and immaculate, the young dragons tamed by the seer. And then the last Deva says, anyone who has gone to the Buddha for refuge won't go to a plane of loss. After giving up this human body, they swell the hosts of the Devas. And so you can see from these verses of the Devas how much respect and veneration is given to the Buddha and the Noble Arahants for their wisdom, for their renunciation, and for their ability to concentrate the mind. We have this dialogue between the Devas and the Buddha in the Pajjhota Sutta. And the question that is asked is, how many sources of light are in the world by means of which the world is illumined? We have come to ask the Blessed One this, how are we to understand it? And the Buddha answers, there are 4 sources of light in the world. A 5th one is not found here. The sun shines by day, the moon glows at night, and fire flares up here and there, both by day and at night. But the Buddha is the best of those that shine. He is the light unsurpassed. So the Buddha here is talking about the light of wisdom. And so the Buddha is perfectly enlightened all on his own, and his light is unsurpassed. Every single Buddha is like that. And so that is why we understand that when a Buddha comes into the world, it is a very rare thing. And when he does come to the world, all the Devas rejoice because they know that they can learn from the Buddha the path that is non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. And at the same time, when a Buddha passes away, they start lamenting because they think that they have not penetrated the wisdom. And so they know it is a great loss when a Buddha is no longer of this world. When we look at the qualities that are respected of the Buddha and the Noble Arahants, we see that they have given up the world. They have renunciated worldly honors, worldly pleasure, worldly wealth, worldly power, all the trappings of samsara. When they have perfected in this way, then you understand that they are free of Mara's domain, because Mara's domain is the world, is samsara. And the Buddha says this in the Maradeya Sutta. This is Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 1, discourse number 26. The Buddha says, virtue, concentration and wisdom, one in whom these are fully developed, on passing beyond Mara's domain, shines forth like the sun. Another teaching comes to us from the Dhammapada, verse number 56, and this is the story of Venerable Mahāsamaya. The Buddha at the time is staying at Veluvana Monastery, the bamboo grove in Rajagaha, and we learn that Venerable Mahāsamaya has arisen from a very highly concentrated meditation known as Nirodha Samapatti. So this is a temporary cessation of all feeling and perception, very high concentrated state. So he goes for alms food in Rajagaha, into the poor section of the city. His intention is to give a poor person the opportunity of gaining great merit, because he has just come out of this Nirodha Samapatti. And Sakka, king of the Devas, wishing to take the opportunity to offer alms food to Venerable Mahākassapa, he assumes the form of a poor person, a poor old weaver, and he comes to Rajagaha with his wife Sujata, also in the form of an old woman. So Thera Mahākassapa stands at the door, and the poor old weaver takes the bowl and fills it with rice and curry, and the delicious smell spreads throughout the whole city. And at that point, Venerable Mahākassapa comes to understand that this is no ordinary human being. And he comes to also realize that it must be Sakka, king of the Devas. Sakka admits the fact that he too is poor because he hasn't had the opportunity to offer anything to anyone during the time of the Buddhas. And then after saying that, he pays respect to Venerable Mahākassapa and takes his leave. So back at Veluvana Monastery, the Buddha sees that Sakka and Sujata have offered alms food to Venerable Mahākassapa. He tells the bhikkhus about this circumstance. And the bhikkhus wonder how Sakka knew that Venerable Mahākassapa had just come out of Nirodha Samapatti, out of this very high concentration, and that it was the right time or the auspicious time to be offering alms food to Venerable Mahākassapa. So they put the question to the Buddha, and the Buddha answers, "Bhikkhus, the reputation of a virtuous one, such as Venerable Mahākassapa, spreads far and wide. It reaches even the Deva world. And on account of his good reputation, Sakka himself comes to offer alms food to him." And so he says this particular verse, "Faint is the scent of Tagra and sandalwood, but the scent of the virtuous is supreme. It blows even to the Deva realms." So this is the thing, when you have such good virtue, when you attain very highly concentrated states of mind, when you excel in wisdom, then it goes even up to the Deva realms. And they want to come and make offerings because one is worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. And so this is something that we can understand as a blessing of renunciation, that it is not by grasping, wanting, gaining, all these different things that are very worldly types of things. It's not through those worldly aspects that you gain respect from the Devas. It is only by renunciation and by practicing in accordance with the right virtue, wanting to concentrate the mind and taking delight in renunciation and developing wisdom. What we can confirm from these teachings is that the fragrance of practicing virtue, practicing our meditation to concentrate the mind, when we practice to develop wisdom, and we see the merit in renunciation as a result of this practice, then we know that we would also gain the respect of the Devas, because that fragrance is one that is non-grasping. It is one that practices non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. So we can end our session here. Let's share the merit with all sentient beings. May all beings be happy and well. May all beings be free from suffering. Blessings of the Triple Gem, wishing you well. Teruan Saranai.